All right, guys, we wanted to welcome anyone that is joining us. This is our BBYK podcast fantasy football draft. This is a draft that Dave and I have been participating in basically since, like college?
I think the year after college when it started.
So it's been a while, and we're off and running.
Yeah,
so
it's got the noise for the first pick. Look at that. You know what? And I'm not going to mute this just so you have the beeps every 5 minutes. Thing. Or like not the beeps, but whatever, like the countdown clock or whatever.
Okay. Well, we'll open it up with something a little open-ended. What players really jump out to you this year? Some guys that you feel like are maybe getting slept on, slightly undervalued.
Honestly, it's kind of weird saying this guy's name when it comes to being slept on and undervalued, but Marshawn Lynch, honestly. I know the guy retired and came back, but he's still beast mode. And if he's healthy, I'm not sure how he's dropping so far as he is in drafts. I think his ADP has kind of risen a little bit of late, but it started out pretty darn low for someone of his pedigree.
Yeah, you also have to think about it from the perspective of, running backs. There's diminishing returns because of all of the stress they put on their body each season. So
that is true.
So he's fresh as long as he stayed in shape, because I think like running back, it's, you don't have a season, maybe your timing's off or something like that. I think someone like beast mode, he'd pick that up pretty quickly. But less wear and tear on his body. He's fresh. He wanted to come back, so I think mentally he's there. And the Raiders are going to have a hell of an offense this year. So
they will that. That is very true.
All right, let's look at a position of scarcity real quick. The tight ends, it's always kind of tricky. Like, yeah, sure, your Gronkowskis and stuff like that. That's easy money. But let's look at some of the other guys, guys that I feel like they're probably going to go in the mid to later rounds. I'm going to give you a list of names. I'm just going to ask you how you feel about them. We got Kyle Rudolph for the Vikings, Zach Ertz for the Eagles, and Eric Ebron for the Lions. Who do you like from that group?
Of those three, I think I would prefer Zach Ertz. I know that Carson Wentz kind of fell off a bit last week, but his starting guard got hurt in the first, I believe, 4 games, I think. It was out for the season after that, so you could see Carson Wentz's numbers going after that. But a healthy O-line and Carson Wentz, give me Ertz in that one. I do like Ebron a little bit too. But if I had to pick one of those, Zach Ertz. Kyle Rudolph is completely dependent on touchdowns, honestly. And it's hard to chase touchdowns. It's like trying to chase a flush in poker.
All right. And for some of the your more sleeper guys, tight ends that are going to go in the later rounds, who do you like out of Jason Witten, Antonio Gates, and Austin Seferian-Jenkins?
Oh, Austin Seferian-Jenkins! What? Best name ever. Would it be completely homerish of me to say Jason Witten?
No, I think I would agree with you there, but I'll let you explain yourself.
Yes, Dak Prescott's no longer a rookie, but Jason Witten is basically the ultimate safety blanket. And he is a huge, huge piece of that Dallas Cowboys offense. And it's one of the at least last year and going into this year, it looks like it will continue to be one of the better offenses in the league. And Witten will continue to have a huge piece of that.
All right, I'm gonna check back into our draft real quick. It looks like you were able to pick up Todd Gurley, coming off a very disappointing season after just a phenomenal rookie season. What do you expect from Gurley this season?
I'm not expecting 1,800 yards or anything like that, but I'm expecting over 1,000 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns, probably maybe 300 receiving yards. Decent for an RB3 for me.
Yeah, for you. Our league is a keeper league, and David has managed to do pretty well for himself over the years. In terms of running backs, you're like the running back whisperer or something.
It kind of worked out that way. And I swore I was going to pick a wideout, but there really wasn't as much value around, considering everyone who was kept.
Yeah.
By the time I got to draft. So
Gurley's a big question mark. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys where when you win the season this year, it's because you believed in Gurley, and if you lose it, it's because you paid a high price for Gurley, and he's he gave you a lot of the same. Obviously very talented. That entire offense is kind of a question mark to me. We'll see. But he's obviously a talented individual. A rookie from this year's class that I'm very high on. He just got picked up by our very own Matt Two Stripe Alexander, Christian McCaffrey. How do you feel about that guy playing for Carolina?
I like him a lot, especially in PPR leagues, because he has shown, like throughout his entire college career, he has shown a great ability to be an excellent pass catcher. The only strike against him, and this could be a very minor strike, is the timeshare there in Carolina with Jonathan Stewart. Anyone who's listened to me previously in the previous years talking about fantasy football, everyone knows I can't stand Jonathan Stewart. I don't understand how he somehow was a starter and somewhat productive. And then last year, I do not have the numbers in front of me, but if I recall correctly, he had arguably the best year of his career and totally made me look like an idiot. But he's still there. So that's the one strike against McCaffrey, but the talent is all there. The pass catching is there. And there's clearly a lot of upside.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. See here, looks like Montgomery just got...
Ty Montgomery went to even.
Yeah, Green Bay is interesting. A lot of mouths to feed there.
Ooh, Green Bay. Out from under Mary Powers.
Oh, she's not picking for a while, so. Let's see here. It looks like Travis Kelce was picked up. You're a big fan of Kelce, but man, we're talking about a guy that's getting picked in the third round. Do you think that's a little high for him, or do you think like that's his value? He's that good and the upside is there.
He has the talent, but anyone who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs should not be drafted before the 7th round.
Yeah, we should point out two big injuries too for the Chiefs in particular. Spencer Ware, and then if you're a Patriots fan, Julian Edelman is out for the season. The obvious thing would be an uptick for guys like Cooks and Gronkowski, but how do you see that affecting the Patriots in general?
If anyone can take a hit to their season-ending injury to their number one wide receiver, it's the New England Patriots. Like they seem to show time and time again that it does matter to a certain extent, but the returns are far less diminishing for the Patriots than they would be for other teams when it comes to those skill positions.
All right, let's talk about quarterback. And you and I, we share the same philosophy. We like to wait on our quarterbacks. We got, guys like Tom Brady who's getting picked up in the third, fourth rounds. Let's talk about some of the quarterbacks you can pick up in the mid to back half of the draft. Guys like Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers, Matthew Stafford, Andy Dalton. Who do you like out of that group?
Also, it's tough to say this as a Cowboys fan, but I do like Kirk Cousins. I know he lost to Deshaun Jackson, and I know he lost Pierre Garçon, but
he got Pryor.
And Pryor is a playmaker. And Cousins, I feel like, is undervalued every single year, but somehow goes out and puts up, top 8 fantasy football numbers every single year. So I do like him. Phillip Rivers is another one who I feel like is a boring pick because he's Phillip Rivers and he's always Phillip Rivers. Oh, crap, it's much from the draft. Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. While you are doing that, I'm going to go ahead. I want to give a quick shout out to the city of Houston. I know it's been a tough time for you guys with Harvey. We got a lot of friends. Our very own Matt Two Stripe is down in Houston. I have a lot of family and friends that live down in Houston, originally from Houston. I know David, your brother's down there. He's actually in the draft. Now, he can't make it to tonight's draft, but a shout-out to him. He's actually out there. He's volunteering to help folks out down there so that, just props to him. That's great. And to all the people that have been volunteering their time. I know it's a tough time, but it's also very inspiring to see how people have really gotten together as a community and people outside of it. Like Texas has really come together. We have help coming in from Austin, San Antonio, Dallas. So just Texas looking out for itself. So very, very cool stuff. But I know things are tough for you guys right now. But Houston, you guys are strong. You guys get through this. All right, let's see here where are we at in the draft? Let's see here. So David went with Gronkowski, and then also Bryant. Now, Bryant's one of those guys this year. People were expecting some big things from him. You think this is the year he finally capitalizes on that God-given like size and speed?
So long as Le'Veon Bell and Martavis Bryant don't go out together, start lighting up stuff, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, that Steelers offense, that's crazy because we talked about Green Bay having a lot of mouths to feed. A lot of mouths to feed in Pittsburgh, but I mean, we're high on all of them.
Right, exactly.
They will get fed. Plenty to go around. It looks like we got Aaron Rodgers and Brady just picked up. And these are your elite quarterbacks. Again, I think, like we've said, if you've listened to our show before previously, David and I shy away from going after the elite quarterbacks in the early rounds. We like to take our chances on some of the other quarterbacks starting from the mid rounds and on. And that's, I think, really the way I look at it, that's really how you win leagues. I mean, look at a guy like Matt Ryan, finished top 3 quarterback last year in fantasy, and where were people picking him? Round 10, 11, 12? It's really finding value like that. No hate for anyone that goes after Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. You know what you're going to get. So, yeah, that's just not how we're feeling. Let's talk about some of the some players that had off seasons, either through injury or just bad play. People are predicting that they'll have bounce back years. I'm gonna throw out a name for you, Amir Abdullah. And you remember everyone fell in love with this guy after what felt like one play in preseason, and then everyone was high on him. And he has been battling injuries and stuff like that. How do you feel about him going into this season?
Honestly, it's a little tough to say because there is that obvious timeshare there in Detroit. He does have an injury history. I believe he's currently healthy, so we'll see how long that lasts. Riddick does seem to be more of the third down pass catching back, so you would assume that Abdullah would get the bulk of the actual carries, and he clearly has the talent. It's just a matter of can he stay on the field and can he get enough burn to actually make it worthwhile.
All right, let's move over to wide receivers. Now, we have a lot of talented wide receivers in the league, but a lot of times wide receivers, their value is really tied to their offense and their quarterback, right? So let's look at a guy like Demaryius Thomas. How do you feel about him going this year? Obviously, an elite caliber wide receiver, still being drafted pretty high, but man, you don't love the quarterback situation there in Denver. So how are you valuing him? He's currently going in the first 3 rounds.
So last year, I know Demaryius did not have a good quarterback situation, but he still managed to put up some pretty incredible numbers. He's just that kind of talent. I'm not sure if I would take him in the first 3 rounds, but I have a hard time begrudging anyone who does, just because the talent is definitely there, and he managed to show that even with a crappy quarterback, he was able to put up extremely strong numbers last year.
Okay. It's funny because I get to evaluate you and let you talk to your stuff. You're at the
Actually, I have a feeling you're doing this on purpose, so you can really, I keep forgetting my picks next and stuff, and I'm like, oh crap, I have 10 seconds to draft someone. What am I going to do?
This was my plan all along. Get David distracted. Our entire league, they've sent in their dues to me already. To do this, take out David early. You guys, we've probably talked about it on the previous shows, but you win our league, and we haven't turned it into a money league. Now we've talked about this a little bit, and we think that maybe that's the direction our league is going to go in the future. But right now, we have the ultimate prize, the Shinerbach Trophy, which I proudly own right now because I won last year. And that was like very surprising even to me because I went into the playoffs with a 500 record, dealing with like a bunch of injuries. But it's just fantasy football. Sometimes you just get really lucky.
Yep, that happens. Oh, shit. It's my turn to draft again. Fuck me. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. This is stupid.
All right. And let's see. You went with Mariota. Going into this, well, just going from his numbers last year, he made that jump. And I think we were talking about it. Mariota, he's going to be I think he's just straight up a winner in just like football terms. He's a good player to have on a great player to have on your team, but I think he's also showing that as a fantasy player, he's a great person to have on your team. I was thinking he might get a little bit of a downgrade because some people were still worried about him getting over his leg injury from last year, but it seems like he's still going pretty strong, getting picked in the 5th and 6th round in most drafts. Obviously, you just picked them. You're high on Mariota. What are your thoughts about just that Tennessee Titans offense in general? How do you feel about them going into this season?
So last year I bought in on the Tennessee offense. I believe I had Mariota, I had Delaney Walker, I think I had Kendall Wright, I had Derrick Henry.
Yeah, you went all in.
Yeah, but I feel like I was a year early. This year, I'm really buying in on Tennessee offense. Last year, Mariota was actually, if I remember correctly, the most efficient quarterback in the red zone, and he just got Eric Decker to throw to, who is, at least by the eye test, one of the best red zone pass catchers in the league. I know he's a little banged up right now, but having Decker for Mariota to throw to makes me very, very happy in my football feels.
We are in the middle rounds right now. I want to stay on the topic of wide receiver. I want to throw out a couple names for you, and you just grab onto the one that you think you would take. We got Michael Crabtree, Larry Fitzgerald, Stefon Diggs, and Jeremy Maclin. And Jeremy Maclin is now with Baltimore.
Oh man. I like something about all of those guys. Crabtree plays in the best offense with one of the best young quarterbacks in the game. Fitzgerald, everyone counted him out. Said he was done, and then last year he comes back and puts up a extremely decent season. So I would expect another one of those another 2016 this year for Fitzgerald. You mentioned Maclin. He's finally out of the dumpster fire that is the Kansas City Chiefs passing game. Granted, he's not in a complete barn burner of an offense, one that I think will do him better than Kansas City did. And you mentioned Stefon Diggs. Yes. And I have always liked Stefon Diggs. The guy is one of the most talented receivers in the game and was able to put up incredible numbers last year with basically no quarterback. He almost had 1,000 yards last year with backups throwing it to him all season. So he should definitely break 1,000 this year, and probably double his touchdown total from last year.
Out of that group of players, Stefon Diggs to me probably has the most can win you your league potential. A lot to love about that kid. I really think is the one thing that was really holding him back was the injuries.
That is true. He missed 4 or 5 games, I think, last year.
Yeah,
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think if you get him in the middle rounds and he stays healthy, you got yourself, in my opinion, a top 12 wide receiver. So I really like the upside on that kid. In middle round, it's always tough. It's a balance, right? Early on, you really have to go with your superstar's foundation. You don't want to be too risky. In the middle round, it's kind of like, or what is your strategy? Do you want to have a higher floor or higher ceiling?
Right.
Stefon Diggs, because of the injury concern, maybe one of those lower floors, but very high ceiling on that kid. I think worth the gamble.
And speaking of, there we go.
Oh, wow, look at that.
I wasn't sure how long I could hold off.
I think this is perfect value. Getting him, let's see here.
63rd.
Yeah. I think that's about right.
I'm actually in another keeper league, and I'm keeping him there. Actually, that draft starts in 40 minutes, and I'm keeping him there in the 8th round.
Just the night of drafts for you. That's great value right there.
Yeah.
That's really great value. I'm going to give you a couple names of some players, wide receivers, and you tell me Nay or Shui?
All right.
First one, Devontae Adams. He's coming off of a career year, really established himself there in that potent Green Bay offense. How are you feeling about him this year?
I'm going to go Shui. Sorry, I'm going to go Nay. My bad. I know the Green Bay offense is potent, but it seems to spread the ball around quite a bit to make it hard to actually trust a particular player, especially. I don't know. Like, there's nothing I've seen in Devontae Adams' game that really makes me just, love it.
All right, I'm going to throw you another name. This is a guy that has burned me the last few seasons due to injury, not just poor play. Keenan Allen, playing for the now Los Angeles Chargers. How are you feeling about him? This guy, he always has one monster game, and then he gets hurt with something. I feel like every year. I've bought into it. I think he's potentially a PPR beast. He and Phillip Rivers have a great rapport together. But the question there, he's been injured enough now where it's just like you're like past the point of just saying this guy's injury prone. It's like, man, what can you even count on from this guy any given season? How are you feeling about Keenan Allen this season?
I'm still bought in, honestly. I know he's injury prone. I know he always gets hurt. But when he is on the field, talk about someone that can win you the league. The Rivers-Allen combination is just lethal. And there's always that risk, but it's football. There's always a risk for anybody. But that ceiling is so extremely high, you can't really pass up on him.
Yeah, and maybe I was like a bit harsh saying like he's past like injury prone, because I think there's another way to look at it. Injury prone is like, oh, this guy hurt his leg and then he hurt his other leg because of like weird gait, or it's similar issues from either bad mechanics due to injury or something similar. Keenan Allen, he's had like injuries but like different parts of his body. He lacerated his spleen. I mean, are these just fluke accidents, or is this guy just like, is he cursed, or what is it? Right,
exactly. It feels like someone didn't quite pray enough to the football gods or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Yeah, I would bet on him again. You're talking about a guy that, when he's on his game, is a potential wide receiver one.
Oh,
right.
More than that, I would say he's one of the top wide receiver ones when he's on his game.
Last name I'm going to throw at you, Willie Snead. We talked about earlier, Brandon Cooks has left New Orleans. He now plays for New England. I'm actually high on Brandon Cooks even more now too because of the Edelman injury, but we're going to talk about Willie Snead real quick. He's kind of a sneaky wide receiver. He gets you decent numbers. I really thought he was going to take another step next year or last year next to Cooks, but then Michael Thomas just came in out of nowhere and was an absolute stud. Now, Michael Thomas, you're taking that guy first or second round. There's no question. He's that talented. But how do you feel about his partner in crime, Willie Snead?
Just because of how many yards Brees throws for through the air, someone's got to catch those at the other end. And Snead's going to catch a boatload of them, and he's going to catch a lot of those long ones. So I do like him. Definitely. I would not take him in the top 5-6 rounds, but if you can get him in 7 or 8, by all means, jump on that.
We are into the.
Ooh, someone just took Chris Hogan. Steven did.
It's a good value. Especially with Edelman out for a season.
Yeah,
Hogan could fill in that position. All right, let's talk about some of the mid-round targets for this year. First one I'm going to ask you is a quarterback. Derek Carr had a knee injury last season, cut a season short. We talked a little bit about the Raiders' offense earlier. How are you feeling about Derek Carr?
I love the talent. I love what he did last year. I know it is tough trusting him after an injury like that without actually seeing him play. But, the guy is a fantasy stud. And it's hard to pass up on him. Especially, I don't have his ADP right in front of me, but the impression I'm getting is he's not going up there with the Aaron Rodgers and the Drew Brees and the Tom Bradys. But he could potentially get you those exact same numbers or better later in the draft. So I say do not pass up on Derek Carr.
Yeah, I do believe his ADP is in the hundreds.
Oh, so that's a steal.
Firmly a mid to back end draft value. There's another guy. I know that you were kind of high on him. Now, when we talk about the Cleveland Browns, Isaiah Crowell is going to be the main guy there. But we also got a guy by the name of Duke Johnson Jr., who seems to do pretty well for himself as that, third down back, pass catching, change of pace guy. Why don't you tell our listeners, what are your thoughts on Duke Johnson Jr.?
So Duke Johnson Jr. is the kind of guy that will not win you the league, will not win you a week, but he's also not the guy that's going to lose you a week. He's always going to have, 7, 8, 9, 10 carries. And then on top of that, he'll have, 5 or 6 catches. So especially in the PPR league, he's pretty solid. He's not going to put up 100 yards, but he's going to do enough damage that he'll be a solid. He's a solid utility player. He's a solid flex player. I like the guy, and if he can ever be the actual I'm not sure if he's built for lead back duties, but he definitely has that. He definitely has a skill for it.
I know you were a Coleman fan. It looks like David just drafted Corey Coleman of the Cleveland Browns. Let's just stay there. What are your thoughts on this offense in general?
Cleveland Browns offense in general is a dumpster fire, but somehow someone's going to score, someone's going to get the yardage, and Coleman is probably the very definition of boom or bust there, but the upside's pretty good, especially this late in the draft.
It's injuries that derailed an otherwise promising season for him. So another one of those guys where we'll see what happens when he's healthy. We got a couple interesting running backs on the board. I want to ask you about Eddie Lacy. He was this is a guy that has been picked as a top 20 player for I feel like the last 3-4 years as the I know. Are you just taking guys because I say their names? I should be going further down the list.
No, so honestly, that one was I was talking and didn't realize I was supposed to be drafting until 13 seconds to go. So yeah, I need to build myself a queue right quick, honestly.
Really, we are just destroyed, David.
I almost drafted Duke Johnson there.
Oh really? Okay. Well, I should start talking about Mohamed Sanu or something.
I'm pretty sure he got kept, right?
Yeah, he did get kept because.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Some things are just.
We don't have to get into that.
Yeah, we do not have to get into that. So I'm seeing here. Eric Ebron is Ebron. I'm never quite sure.
Eric Ebron.
Ebron, is it Ebron?
I honestly don't know. That's what I've always said, but.
So it looks like we got a couple, kind of, shall we say, high upside, very highly touted coming out of college with Eric Ebron and Austin Hooper. Between those two guys, who do you like?
Oh, between Hooper and Ebron?
Yeah.
Hooper definitely. They both play in pretty good offenses. I don't know. That's a tough one, honestly. If I had to pick, maybe Hooper. But honestly, it's hard. That's a hard one.
Yeah, they're both those freakish athletes that everyone is just waiting on them to cash in on their potential. Hooper is a bit younger. Eric, he's been there for a few seasons, and maybe another Jared Cook situation on our hands where the size, the speed, the skill set in our heads, we we really build them up as players, and then they don't ever quite live up to it. I wonder if Eric is starting to fall into that territory.
That's quite possible. You look at him and you go, man, you must be a beast. But numbers never quite get there.
Now we're getting later into the draft. Amendola. Okay. Someone just drafted Jeremy Hill. That Cincinnati running back situation. You got the rookie Dixon, and then you have Hill, and I'm blanking on his name. I think
Bernard.
Yeah. Giovanni Bernard. So a little murky of a situation, but in my opinion, I think ultimately the rookie is going. This is his team. What are your thoughts on that, on the running back situation in Cincinnati?
I think you're ultimately correct that it's Mixon's job in the long term. I think the big question is, how long does that take? Does it take half the season for him to establish himself as the clear lead back, or is it going to be one guy gets 12 carries, one guy gets 8 carries, one guy gets 7 carries kind of thing for half the season? I think that's the only question mark, but ultimately it will be Mixon's team, I believe. Yeah.
Now we're going to have a couple players that former first or second round picks that are in situations where they're going to be seen as the third, maybe even the fourth option on their team. I'm going to just throw out a name. How do you feel about a guy like a Nelson Aguilar?
Nelson Aguilar, I feel like he's become a joke, honestly, because every season everyone's so high on him, but it never happens. The physical talent's clearly there. I'm not sure what it is. They obviously also have a new wide receiver there in Philly, so I'm not sure what that means for Nelson's role on the team. Honestly, I would stay away from him. There is upside, and I guess at this point in the draft, all you are looking for is upside, but I have a hard time seeing him actually reach that upside.
So we got a name at the top of our queue right now in our fantasy draft, and this is a guy that I don't understand why he is picked as late as he is, Tyrod Taylor. As far as fantasy quarterbacks are concerned, we were talking about mid to late round quarterbacks to gamble on. I think he's one of those guys that should be going a little bit higher than he is, just based on the fact that I
believe that is correct. He does. He's the probably very definition of a dual threat quarterback. I think what drives him so low in the draft is always just the limitations of that Buffalo Bills offense. It's tough to buy into, but like you said, the talent's clearly there, and I am clearly about to draft him as my third quarterback.
I feel this has become a pattern, David. This has become a pattern. You talk about lack of.
I don't know. Let's see.
Lack of weapons. You got Tyrod Taylor. They lost one of their biggest weapons in Sammy Watkins. To that point, though, if you look at the numbers, Watkins missed a good chunk of the season last year due to injury, and Tyrod Taylor was still putting up this very similar numbers without Watkins. So for your 2 quarterback leagues out there, I think he's pretty good value as your second quarterback, and as a backup quarterback, I think he provides very good value. And depending on the matchups, I mean, you might be playing this guy depending on who your QB1 is. You're not gonna sub him in for Tom Brady any given week. But if you had one of the guys that we were talking about earlier, like a Andy Dalton or Matt Stafford or something like that, I mean, this is a guy that, if those guys are playing against tough defenses, this is a guy that you could sub in, and he can do his thing. Looking at the board, got a couple guys now that are a little bit more leap of faith guys. Because we're big Cowboys fans. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Cole Beasley. How do you feel about this guy? He had a decent season for himself last season.
So Cole Beasley is actually in my queue at the moment.
No way.
For reals. Part of that is probably just because I am a Cowboys fan. But last year, he showed real chemistry with Prescott. The two of them, if Jason Witten was the safety blanket, Cole Beasley was safety blanket 1B. And his ability to catch those balls in the slot and make people miss is very, very useful. So there he goes, Cole Beasley off the board.
Cole Beasley off the board. I'm gonna have to look at your. We'll have to listen to this episode afterwards, and then play it with your draft and see how many guys you were talking about end up being on your team.
All right, here we go again. What am I gonna do?
Oh, I would have laughed if you went like Nelson Aguilar.
I talked myself into it.
Let's see here. We got some interesting names left. Devin Funches. Funches and bunches.
Funches and bunches.
Guys that are, high upside, and I don't think anyone really feels like he's going to contribute this year. But again, just like we were talking about with Eric earlier, O.J. Howard, the tight end for Tampa Bay. You think it's worth a gamble? I mean, we're talking about bottom of the barrel at this point. So this is a guy that you'll probably most likely find on the waiver wire in your league. We have a slightly deeper roster, but how do you feel about a guy like O.J. Howard?
You're correct in the saying at this point, it's the bottom of the barrel. You're just going for, the home run shot. And yeah, like I can't remember his exact combine numbers and everything, but the guy is a freak athlete in an offense that likes freak athletes. So, go for it. But at this point, there's not much to lose. So, and I would take him above some of the other options at this point. That is for very sure.
We have some teams that invested in potential franchise quarterbacks. Of all the rookie quarterbacks this year, which one would you draft on your team?
Oh, man. It's a really crappy question.
Really crappy question.
There's not much in the way of rookie quarterbacks that I really like. I guess I've heard good things about Kaiser out in Cleveland. I know it's Cleveland and everything, but I have heard good things there. But
someone has to throw the ball to Colin.
Exactly. If I could help it, though, I would avoid them all. There's no reason to draft a rookie quarterback this year with all the other talented quarterbacks out there in the league, unless you're in some crazy deep league that plays like 5 quarterbacks per team.
All right, let me rephrase it. If we were in a dynasty league, is there anyone that you feel like you would that makes you go, oh, yeah, I'd like to take a flyer on this guy?
Good question. Let me think. I mean, I know Watson's like the big guy, the big name of the rookies, but I don't think he's even starting for Houston. If you could draft him and stash him on the bench, that's not bad. But maybe was it Trubisky up in Chicago?
Yeah.
If I had to pick one that could maybe produce right away, it's probably Trubisky.
Which is so funny. What an awkward situation.
Yeah.
There's like, Glennon, here, let's give you a contract. You're going to be our starting quarterback. And then we're going to trade up and draft a quarterback. So
yeah, exactly.
that's a fun situation. As far as Watson is concerned, I'll give the Texans I'll give them to the first half of game 1 before the fans start chanting for Watson to play. And it's a lot more exciting for a team drafting those rookie quarterbacks, the fans for those teams, than it is as far as fantasy football is concerned. It's very rare that you have a rookie quarterback come in and actually be able to produce from a fantasy perspective.
Dak Prescott kind of broke the mold.
Dak Prescott broke the mold. Carson Wentz had a streak there early on in the season where he was producing fairly well, but he seemed to hit a wall that Dak really didn't hit until much later in the season. So we'll see. But, obviously very high on Prescott. I'm just going to ask you because you're, the Cowboys expert. But where would you draft Prescott?
I would put him in that second tier of quarterback, not with the Bradys and the Rodgers and the Brees, but, further back in the draft. Prescott, to me, is a better real-world quarterback than fantasy quarterback. Last year, what made him so great in fantasy was all the rushing touchdowns. But it's hard to count on those season after season, especially as a quarterback. I know he's still in his second year. He's not old or anything. But you look at Cam Newton, his rushing touchdowns numbers went down. I think it's just the natural progression of a quarterback maturing and learning the NFL game more. So it's hard to count those rushing touchdowns, which is why I put him in the second tier of quarterbacks, no matter how much I love Dak.
I'm looking at some of our competitors' teams this year, and we're looking at one. Jonathan Rogers is wide receivers: Odell Beckham Jr., Emmanuel Sanders, and Sammy Watkins. So, not
okay, yeah,
not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all.
We got Chris Lyon, who was the point leader in last year's in the season in our league last year. Largely due to the two guys that he kept, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans. That was a pretty
win you a league.
That is very tough. He kept Dak Prescott. I don't know if he did that because he thinks that Dak Prescott is that good of a quarterback, or because he knows that there are Cowboys fans in the league that maybe he can trade Prescott to.
My guess would be the latter, but you never know. He has kind of turned a leaf when it comes to his fantasy football skills.
Oh yeah, it used to be.
I can't remember who I didn't trade for. Who did I get from him? I stole someone from him for some wide receiver 3 from Green Bay or something.
Someone decent too. I forget. I want to say he would have. I don't remember, like a Bengals running back or something. But
back when Bernard was actually like really good.
Yeah, possibly. But it was someone that was like a good player, like a top 50 fantasy producer, and he traded him to you for just a guy. It was basically because he was on Green Bay.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Fun times.
Fun times. He's evolved. He now. I'm looking at his team, and there is not one Packer on there. So that's
impressive.
That is very impressive. Good job. Good job, Chris. You did well for yourself.
Proud of you, man. Proud of you.
What did the Jags do to your brother, by the way? Why is his name this year is God Hates Jags?
My guess is he just Googled best fantasy football team names and saw that, thought it was funny. I think it's because it rhymes with something similar that you can see on a Westboro Baptist Church sign.
Yeah, sounds like something your brother would do. Just to remind our listeners out there, this is a guy that is currently out volunteering his time to help people down in Houston. So.
Yes, he's missing a fantasy football draft to help save people whose homes have been flooded.
Yeah, things are pretty bad. I'm gonna link a couple different charity organizations that are down there to help people, victims of Hurricane Harvey. So I'll be linking that stuff in the description below. I would encourage everyone to go check that out. Donate what you can. They really need it. This is crazy. If you guys I'm sure it's been all over the news. Just look at some of the pictures of the rivers and stuff like that. It's pretty crazy. I mean, this is so what happens? You build a city on top of a swamp. You need the proper infrastructure and necessarily want to get into all of that, but definitely help out if you can. Definitely help out if you can. And then let's see here. My brother is also in this league. I'm just checking out some of the teams. He's got Ezekiel Elliott and DeMarco Murray, so the current stud running back for the Cowboys, and then the previous guy that he replaced. Ezekiel Elliott. This would be my last question before it looks like the draft is ending. Before we end this, Zeke is going at the end of the second round. He's got a 6-game suspension. Is that about right for him? Where would you draft him?
It's hard.
Like, would you draft him earlier than that? Would you gamble early second, late first?
So right now, I guess he's currently appealing his suspension. I'm not sure what the odds are of him getting a reduction in that. But if you can get Zeke in the second round and his suspension's cut to, say, 4 games, I say that's a steal. Last year, Le'Veon Bell had, I believe it was a 4-game suspension. He was going in the second, third round, and that was clearly a steal. If you can draft Zeke in the second round and then pick up Darren McFadden, round 8 or 9, you're good to go.
All right, guys, that has been our fantasy football episode. It's like live for our draft. Now, we are going to be hooking you guys up with fantasy advice all season. You guys could always tweet them at us at Broest Bros. You could tweet them at my man here at David L. Bridges, and he is going to be getting you guys. He does a fantasy thing for all of the UFC fights. He also does a similar thing for each week for fantasy football. So you got to listen to this guy. He's got the best advice for DFS in general, but especially this season for football. If you need some help, this is your man. Guys, like I said, I am going to be putting down some links for different charities, and you can donate for the people down in Houston. If you like this episode, why don't you give us that thumbs up, Matt? For not joining us. Maybe you can give us a thumbs up. For the latest and greatest in all things BBYK, why don't you hit that subscribe button? And until next time, we are the Broest Bros.